better now? What do you guys think?
I think it should be better.
Okay. This
Okay.
dog is saying better? Yeah.
Better, yeah, better as far as which mic I think I should be using.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's go ahead and start the game now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I brought my mic a bit
Let's
closer.
do it.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I cannot amp up more. It's the max, so yeah. We have to live with this.
Okay.
Okay. So, Tamay, you have
I'm
black
the
here.
first one.
Let's begin.
Okay. So you're on OGS. Can you give me a
Oh, yes. A link.
address?
I will send you in the Discord.
Okay, looks good so far.
Okay, it looks like the ads are done. Now, I think often 3-4 points in the corner can be more important to enclose or approach than 4-4 points.
That's what we used to say. It's not so like this is a pretty common opening, and so like in the old days, and it can be done now also. The idea would be that black would be thinking of playing a corner enclosure in the lower right corner. But nowadays you can play a enclosure from the star point too. It works as far as the computer seems to look at it. It seems to work either way.
Sorry, I didn't
So
get the
like
second one.
So
So
like
you.
this is a board
Mhm,
position where it doesn't really matter where you play because there's a lot of good points. So
mhm.
I can be distinct here. So I could say that like there's if you ask the computer, it's going to give you a good score if you play at 017, which would be in the old days that would be considered not the best move because it's a enclosure from the star point. But the computer doesn't really seem to mind. I'm talking about programs like Katago or neural networks. So it's not as it was valid before, but it, it's maybe not so valid now that we're researching with computers. So you can play a corner enclosure, or you can play an approach to one of white stones. Free to choose. Okay.
Now, in pro games I've watched recently, maybe not this position, but I have seen pros approaching from sort of the outside or from uh, the white stone rather than from in between black stones on the side.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing that can be done either way. But like if you're not sure, it's always a good idea to play on a side that has a lot of space. So in this case, like the top side makes sense.
Is that applicable for black too? Should I play where I have more space, or?
Okay, like it's perfectly okay to play some kind of answer to White's move or play a pincer, but you can also play one of an approach move to one of the White stones. Like at this point of the game, it's really you have a lot of freedom to choose, and like the choices you make at this point, they won't um, they won't determine the result, but they will determine what kind of game you're going to end up playing.
And what do you think about attaching to white? Does it make me weaker? For example, P17, or?
P17 would used to be a kind of a no-no thing, but
Mm-hmm.
nowadays you see people do it. So like it's um, when you play that move, you do end up having some issues with a kind of a weak corner with the 3-3 point at R17. But there are pros and cons to that. It's not necessarily bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you chose that one.
And Tamea, do you remember
Yes.
the approach Drazeki that we've covered a few times, approaching the 4/4 stone?
No, sorry. This one, you mean the D4?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so far. I so what you were asking is to me, I know what to do next here.
Right.
Right? Yeah. Well, you played a Kakari at F3. It means that you probably want to play another stone to support it, um, and start to make a base for it.
Is it better to play towards my own stones when I want to support, or try to go towards the corner?
The lower side is pretty wide open, so you can play a stone somewhere in the middle of the lower side.
Middle of the lower side.
Mm-hmm. That's a pretty good hint, actually.
That move looks
Oh yes,
reasonable to me.
yes. That's where we always used to play the stone. Like nowadays, you see a lot of people doing stuff towards the corner, like an
Mm-hmm.
attachment at D3. But you have to know that Joseki to play it. Okay, yeah, that's a move. So what part of the board um, calls your attention at this point?
The right side, I think, but also the left side is too white, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's one of the. They're about equal. You can't get everything. You have to choose
Right.
which one you want.
I guess it's better to strengthen the right side now.
It's still a position where, like, one could say it doesn't really matter what
Mm-hmm.
the direction is because the right side and the left side they're still both. Yeah, but yeah, the right side is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very calm opening here.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the Joseki you were asking her about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I decided this one because it was fairly simple.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the moment to defend the corner or to do
Right. Defending the
bigger?
corner would be a proper move.
That would be the
Mhm.
textbook Joseki, so it can't be that wrong. Although computers might or might not play it. It depends on the game situation.
Mm-hmm. And on its own, common would be something like L17. I'm going to stand up here. I think I can. I like. I think I can get a big moyo.
Mm-hmm. So white's going for a kind of a square shape on the top side.
Hmm. Okay, is that bad for my right side or can I go to the left now?
Uh-huh. You can go to the left if you want to. So it's a position we're getting closer to the middle game now. And so black has more solid positions maybe, and white has a wider area. So you have to choose. Yeah, left side would be pretty normal, or you could choose to jump into the top side.
Mhm. This seems like dangerous. The top side. Maybe here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think rather than immediately attacking that stone, I'm going to try this kick and try to make this corner, since black didn't uh, slide in, I'm going to try this.
Mhm. Okay. And then I was told it's always good to kind of extend here, like strengthen my black stone. Is that the way to go?
It would be perfectly reasonable, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Extending up maybe is better than extending down.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't know if I've ever seen extending down.
That would
Why
be
is
very
that?
rare. It would be rare with the distant extension. Sometimes you see it with the two-space extension.
Two space, like
I'm talking about
F6.
A4. When that stone is 3 spaces away, I was saying you don't see this black playing to the second line in a position where the A4 stone is so far away. But sometimes you see it when the stone is at J3. I'm talking about the stone you played towards the side.
I wonder about
Wow.
shoulder hits. I've seen shoulder hits to reduce, say black had a stone somewhere in the middle of the, well, in the middle of the right side, or maybe one of those R14 or R5 shoulder hitting to reduce. I wonder about shoulder hitting a stone that doesn't have any nearby stones to help.
Right. Well, you see, black is going to either push or crawl against this. So that's pretty much mandatory. It's something you have to know if you're playing. You know that when your opponent shoulder hits like that, it's pretty much natural just for black to crawl or maybe to push on the fourth line. And so when the black stone was weak to start with, you have to realize that this is going to allow black to make a living shape because black's going to get a line of stones on the third line, for instance. So it's going to strengthen the black stone. So that's the downside of white's choice here. But that said, it is a kind of this kind of shoulder hit thing was played in the new Seki era when people like Kosegen or Kitani were experimenting with new styles. And ultimately, they decided it wasn't really working, but that was at the professional level, so it's pretty ambiguous, I guess.
Okay, so I like what you said with the making some
You want
area
to make a
here.
base for the lonely black stone, yeah, definitely. That's where
Uh-huh.
you want to be. Yeah.
That sounds good here on the third line. Keep going. How much should I keep going though? And when should I decide to go at C8 or something to make more space?
Yes. Well, you want to keep on going as long as you think it's going to be forcing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's a
Okay.
kind of a judgment you have to make, and it's
Uh-huh.
case by case.
And then
Right.
everybody's saying it's not good to get hit on the head, so probably after 2 stones I should go one more at least.
I think that's maybe a bit of a different situation.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. But yeah,
Okay.
it's not that you were suggesting a move that was necessarily bad, but
Mm-hmm.
the logic there is indeed a slightly different situation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now my idea here with the shoulder hit was I was perfectly happy letting black live, and I sort of want to get a big upper
Right,
side.
right. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
it in a way it's a valid strategy. Like, um, it's putting a lot of eggs in one basket, so that would be the downside.
Okay, now I feel kind of confident to do C8. Or is C8 good, or is there something better to make more space for black?
Well, like if you're going to play towards the lower left corner
Mm-hmm.
area, it's yeah, C8 is a great idea. Okay, so now the black group on the lower side is pretty stable. Um, and so white has to look at the overall position. Um, two things that I would be thinking about, two areas that I would be concerned with as white. Can you guess what they are?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So right now, black has played c8.
Mhm.
With white, if I were thinking of the next move for white, um,
Okay, there are
can you
two
guess what those
areas.
two areas are? Right, two parts of the board.
I see someone in chat saying C14 or C10.
Mm-hmm.
Men Zogi said C14 is slow? Question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Or Monsieur Chi says C9.
okay, so
Wow. I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't be happy with a C9.
right, so getting a big corner does look valuable.
Mhm.
Another thing I'm looking at is a play somewhere on the upper side. I wonder if maybe fifth or sixth line is reasonable. Now when building a big moyo, I'm not familiar with plays in the middle of a side, but on very high lines.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, so you got half of what I was sort of hinting at. So
Mm-hmm.
um, basically, White uh, has played at 015 in the upper right, and that
Mm-hmm.
jump by playing on the fifth line, White's already sort of committed to. Did I do that? White's already sort of committed to attempting to surround the top side on a large scale. And also White played the shoulder hit at D12. So White's
Mm-hmm.
put a lot of um, resources, spent 2 moves basically to start building the top side. It means that that's one of the areas that I'd be sort of anxious about as White, is that if Black jumps in, for instance, somewhere around K17 and trashes
Mm-hmm.
the whole area,
Yeah, yeah.
then all of that,
I wish.
all of the moves that White played, they could be wasted, and maybe I'm not going to have any territory out of it. So that's one thing. And so yes, so like you were saying, I would be considering both moves on the fourth line or the fifth line. And the thing is that if you play high on the fifth line, you're leaving room open for invasions on the third line, and you have to be fairly confident that you can probably kill that group if Black comes in underneath you when you play high with
Mm,
moves like the fifth or sixth line. It's not it's not something that you can do just with a feeling for the game. You have to actually
right,
calculate
right.
and figure out what happens if your opponent invades. So it's a lot of calculation. If you play something like L16 or K16,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in that case, you can feel fairly confident that your opponent is not going to be coming in inside there, and so it's a more intuitive thing that you can judge by doing that. So that's one of the areas that I was concerned about. There's actually another area which would be the lower left corner,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's because you kicked at E3, and when you play that Joseki, there's this issue with Black invading the 3-3 point at C3.
Right, right.
There's, you have to have a plan for that. So like if I have a good plan for the lower left corner, then I would be thinking about some move on the top side. And yeah, I think it's maybe a bit C14 is a big move, um, but I would be more focused on the top side if I was going to play
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or if you don't have a good plan for when Black invades the C3 point, then you would be thinking of playing moves like E6 or F2. So it's basically a question of which of those two areas you want to emphasize.
Okay. Well, I think I have some ideas about the corner. Uh,
Okay.
I'm looking at things like E6. I also maybe have ideas of crawling under on the bottom side, since uh, I'm not entirely sure, but I have a feeling that it makes a difference that K4 is high as opposed to K3, which would have been low.
Actually, I was also thinking of going to e6 to connect the side with the bottom, kind of.
Huh? Okay, so that's the
Not
kind of
sure
move you
about
play
e6.
when you have. Uh, so Timia, how do you feel about that group that Black has on the left side?
I don't think it's strong enough, so I think it needs more help.
So that's why you would play e6. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, if you don't think it's strong enough, then the best way to reinforce it would be to play a move that takes away some of White's territory.
Mm-hmm.
So, where do you think that would be? Like if you so you have this area that's sort of
Hmm.
defined by the C8 stone, and you have this line on the third line of the board all the way to the C13 stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you would usually assume that the area below that on the second and first lines is probably going to be a black territory. Would you agree to that?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if it seems that you're saying that you don't think that's enough space to be alive.
I just don't know about the C8 stone. If
You think
is
it's too
it?
far away?
Yeah, maybe.
That's a two space extension. I'd say that's probably okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
All right. So then maybe something else because I want to protect maybe my right side so white doesn't come in here.
Or as Redmond Sensei was talking about earlier, the 3/3 invasion is a
Yeah.
possibility.
Yeah, that would be sort of calling his bluff, but you would have to be able to continue with
uh,
that too.
the C3 thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling
Okay.
you would be afraid of that.
Let's try. Let's try. Let's see.
Okay.
Right.
It's interesting. Like we always knew that, but with computer programs researching this kind of thing, um, we actually have data that is more convincing than our feelings. That shows that it's not it doesn't really even matter whether you live or not inside this corner.
Hmm.
And
Oh, that's
I mean,
interesting.
not that it doesn't matter, but there are variations where you can profit from this, even if it doesn't live. And so, like, usually, human players are usually very focused on just trying to live whatever. But when you research a shape like this with a computer program, it's not always like that. There's other solutions.
Hmm. Now, right, as why I'm thinking about E2 or F2, I think I watched a video one time about a special circumstance where you'd play D3, but I don't remember what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try F2.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess I should do something to support my C3 somehow.
Okay. So yeah, you actually have two choices here. So like the natural stance would be to cover at G2. That would be the natural way to kind of a natural reaction to F2. Like you would
Mm-hmm.
always, if we disregard the fact that you've just
Mm-hmm.
invaded the 3/3 point, you would always
Mm-hmm.
want to cover E2. So that's the
Okay.
most natural response. Um, but the idea of playing something in the corner first or playing something in the corner instead is also possible. It's not as if it doesn't exist.
Okay, let's try the corner.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Okay, so this is where the calculation is important.
Hmm, yes.
But you said it doesn't matter if black or white gets it. Or did I misunderstand that?
I said there are some situations where it's okay to die, but when you play
Mm-hmm.
moves from the inside like you just did, it does get it does become necessary to live now.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of committed
Uh,
yourself to that move.
trying to see if I could get away with playing c4. Like, it looks at least a little bit natural to connect, since there's two cutting points.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sort of trying to figure out. Well, let's see. If c4 e2, I'm not sure. I don't think I really like that. If I'm cut at e4, Zogi says, OMG, 2-minute ads.
E4.
Now, if I do play e4, I don't think the cut is working immediately. Then what I'd want to be sure of if I played e4 was something like, yeah, either killing black in the corner or making sure that I somehow get either a base or can run away. Maybe both. Humble Solipsist says, ads done.
Back at it again.
Let's see. If I were to get c5, if black curls around, then e6 would be a fairly critical point. If I connect at e2, I think if black curls around, maybe it's worse for white. I'm going to try e4.
That was a good choice. So what were you trying to do with d3, Timia?
I was thinking maybe I can use these two stones, the f3, 4, and then the c4, c3, d3, and then kind of,
Looks like you were trying to cut white.
yeah, kind of surround these.
That's not
Yeah.
really going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so at this point, you probably have to, you've played two stones inside the corner. It would be nice if you could find a way to make a life for them now.
Mm-hmm.
You actually do have a way to do it.
Okay.
And chat seems to agree.
Yes.
And that would
I don't know
involve
if you can see the
You
chat
want
or
to
not.
create space inside the corner. You just want to make some space.
some space in the corner.
Yeah, you want to make a space that's, for instance, it looks like it's something like 6 points or at least 4 points. You want just to make some space.
Okay, so I guess then c4 would be a good idea.
Yeah, it's the right idea. I was thinking either c4 or b5, actually. b5 would be probably the more common. Okay.
Okay.
So now you have to continue surrounding the corner. You have to make as much space as possible.
I guess then now it's time for b5.
You're not going to play d2?
D2.
Yes.
Right.
That's what we
D2
call a
threatens the
keep.
cut.
d2 would be a forcing move. Yeah, that gives you a bit more space. So now it's not going to collapse. And after I
Mm-hmm.
convince you to play the 3-3 point, I'm sort of happy that at least you're going to be able to live now.
Hmm.
But you see, when you do it this way, you have strength in white on the outside. So white's play is sort of working also.
Somebody's following.
You still need to add stones to the corner.
I still need to add, okay. And
Yeah.
then,
So you can play in a key point, or you can try to expand the area. That's
okay.
the choice.
So key point would be B2.
Ah, very good. That's correct.
And extend would be B5. I don't know why I still think of B5.
Well, that B5 would be expanding your area.
Mm-hmm. Okay, maybe let's do B2.
So like that choice, it's something that in some cases it's okay to expand your area, and in
Mm-hmm.
some cases you want to play the key point. And you don't really know unless you have read out the position or you know it sort of.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a case where with your group on the left side there, if you play moves like B5, your attempts to expand your space do tend to weaken your group on the other side. There's kind of they're getting in the way of each other.
Now
Okay,
I'd
so it's
like
White's
I'd
turn. It's White's turn. You probably want to find a way to strengthen this white group because for the time
yeah.
being it doesn't have any eyes.
I'd like to play something like H3, but I think maybe it my my group could become weak. I think E6 is a safe and a shape move.
It's a shape move.
Let's see. I'm Togen, redeemed add cat ears. Typically, that's for when Timea has her avatar.
Right. I will
Uh,
do that another time. All right. So is my corner safe now, or should I still extend it?
Okay, I guess I can tell you that it's safe. It's safe, but
yeah.
so now
Uh-huh.
I think that the when you do stuff like this, you've lived in the corner, so you've taken
Mm-hmm.
away some of White's
Mm-hmm.
territory, and White has played at E6 to make the White group fairly strong.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it was a trade of caste or territory for some potential that White gets by having this strong group. So when your opponent creates a strong group like that, um, this is about where I would sort of give up on the idea of attacking White. So like White's played in to make an eye shape there, and White has potential eyes on the bottom side and the left side. So White has a lot of potential to make a living shape, and it's looking a bit difficult for Black to continue hoping to attack this White group. So the moment we've established this strong White group, what you do is you look at the surrounding Black groups and you have to figure out whether you have any groups you're worried about. So would you be worried about the left side or the bottom side areas at this point?
Well, you told me left side is okay, and I trusted you.
That was
And
before you invaded the corner.
okay, and now things changed. Okay.
They change all the time in Go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's sort of ambiguous. Like not necessarily. So
I,
would you be more worried about the right side?
Now I'm worried about both left and right.
You're worried about.
I
So
think
what
I'd
about what about if you were going to play a stone on the bottom side?
Mm-hmm.
You have two choices there also. So like you have these two stones at f3 and 4 that are sort of stuck to the white wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so one idea would be to play at h3 and sort of link up those stones with your stone at k4 to make locally a fairly strong shape.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be the move that would relatively have some possibility of attacking white in the future, because it would be taking away white's potential eye on the bottom there also, as well as reinforcing the black group.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say, even if you play that, you would be afraid that the whole thing would be coming under attack, in which case you would be thinking of a move further to the right. So like something like n4, for instance, where you would be connecting the k4 stone to the corner enclosure in the lower right corner, and you would be establishing a territory from the K line all the way to the lower right corner. And you would be thinking of probably sacrificing those two stones at f3 and 4. So that's the two sort of attitudes that you could possibly have if you're going to play a stone towards the bottom. So you can play at h3 to try to take the lower side on a large scale while putting some pressure on white, or you can play a move like n4, which would be just sort of abandoning the two stones on the left, but focusing more on making a solid territory
Mm-hmm.
And
there.
would
Like that's a strategic choice.
mm-hmm.
There are ways that both of those could work.
And would N4 help also my right side? Or we don't know yet.
Indirectly, like
It
indirectly, like
it
you could assume that
would.
if some fight started up on the right side, then having a stone at n4 could eventually participate in that.
Okay, that may be
Mm-hmm.
N4.
And Slap 8 had been asking about G6.
G6.
G6, like with h3 wide open,
Oh, sorry.
like h3 would be white's refutation to that stone. Would
Mm-hmm.
it would like g6 is a move that I would be thinking of playing after playing at h3. I think you need to start with h3 and then chase
Mm-hmm.
h6. Okay, so that's a double purpose move. There's sometimes it would be reinforcing white's lower left corner. But if I were white, I wouldn't be so worried about the
Mm-hmm.
white group in the corner. So I would say this move is starting to surround the center, and also sort of looking sideways at the black group on the left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now that I know that my left side is not safe anymore, and there's this white stone
What kind
coming.
of move? Let's hear what you would think of as a way to reinforce that group.
B6 or
B
7?
or 7. Okay. Um, when you
As
think of moves like that, you have to know that white can play at b4, black b3, and white can play at b6, and that's just threatening the corner. White has forcing moves there,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have to imagine that there's and usually when you're trying to live in the corner, there's going to be a white stone at b6. So you don't want to sort of bump your head into a brick wall. Like it's
mm-hmm.
dangerous. Yeah,
think B15 is
right,
there's more space there, and
right. Yes, like you say.
Mm-hmm.
So, the point I'm trying to get to here is that when you want to reinforce a group like this group that black has on the left side, um, you also want to think about reducing white's potential territory. So
mm,
instead of playing in an area like the 5, 6, 7 lines down on the second line, you it's way better to be looking towards the upper left corner, which is potentially a pretty big white territory. So that's a great instinct, and you also have to realize that that's the direction that you want to go as black. It's really important. That's why people were suggesting C14 earlier for white, because it's for the same reason. Because if white plays at c14, that takes the whole corner. So there's some um, there's an immediate territorial value um, given to such a move. That's why it's so important.
And B15 or C14? Which one is better in this case?
That's pretty clear. Actually, there's like c14, white plays c15. Are you going to get any further inside?
Not really, right?
Right. So a
Okay.
move white. It's because white has so many stones on the fourth line. If you're crowing on the third line, it's very easy for white to stop you. So
Hmm.
you sort of dodge the white stones. You're looking at a move on the second line. So Uzuki was, yeah, okay. Oh, you've already
Mm-hmm.
played. So the other choice was b16.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was kind of timing out, so I'm in
I'm just gonna
Vyoyom.
try this one.
What should we do? Because I'm almost timing out.
Probably White's move was, I don't know about it, because probably b16. Hmm.
Okay. So what was the time control in this game?
Uh, it was set 30
seconds.
minutes and 30 seconds Byoyomi 5 times.
Right, because we know that you're busy too, so if you have to drop out, let us know.
Okay, I was just wondering what you're going to do with the time here.
I
Yeah,
was
I
thinking
just
maybe as we run short on time here, maybe that's when we'll do the review.
Yeah, okay. That can be done.
So do we want to go a few more moves? Do we want to do the review now?
Why don't you play a few more moves?
okay. So I paused
All right.
because time is running out, but I will unpause.
Yep. Let's
So
resume.
Hmm.
okay, so now I have this stone here,
Game resumed.
and do I want to go more towards the
10,
corner or
9,
connect towards
8,
the
7, 6,
C14?
5, 4,
I
Not sure.
3,
think going the
2,
corner makes
1.
more sense,
4
probably.
periods left.
Yeah.
Like B16?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now you've got a lot more space there. So I'd say that if I were black, I would be feeling a lot happier about that black group.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the urgent stuff that is finished. Why
Mm-hmm.
don't you think of a move towards the right side that you would want to play?
10, 9,
Well, probably
8,
somewhere here in the
7,
middle.
6, 5, 4, 3,
Maybe
2,
here
1. 3 periods
on
left.
Q10.
Yeah, those stones are on the third line around it. So the fourth line is better than the third line here, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, they do say that you should, when you surround the sides, you want to have stones on both the third line and the fourth line. So it's a combination of stones on the third line and fourth line. Makes a well balanced position. Okay, so now white
I was
has a
thinking,
choice. Your choice would be to continue surrounding the center, or you
mhm.
could be diving into the red side. That's a choice.
Well, I don't, maybe I don't feel like diving into the right side.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I was thinking about Tengen for kicks and giggles, but I'm wondering if that's a bit loose. And then also I was thinking about moves maybe somewhere around, maybe G5's not, I'm not sure about something like G5, but or somewhere above white or above black on the bottom, where well, if black's happy to sacrifice those stones, maybe
Yeah, I would
black would just
definitely
start
be.
playing into the center.
Yeah, I would be more focused on the center or the right
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
One of those two.
I don't really have a clear idea of how to think about surrounding that much space sort of when I'm on perpendicular sides. Like if I've built up parallel sort of this wall on the D file and sort of a little bit of a wall on the O file, then right, playing in the middle, I don't have any I don't know how to think about when I've got, say, a wall on the D file here and then stone sort of on the 16th rank. Does that make sense?
I think sort of you don't know how to continue surrounding it, is what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, um,
I wonder about a move like K13 actually now.
yeah. So yeah, that's an example of a straightforward way to try to surround. So the problem here is that when you're playing a move that surrounds the center like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't have any effect on your opponent's positions,
Right.
then it takes a lot of work to finish the borderline.
Ah,
Like
right,
it
right.
takes a lot of work. So you want to sort of um, so like when I say that I would be focusing on the right side or the center,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can sort of use both of those ideas together. And instead of diving in to the third line somewhere to try to erase the whole right side, you would be floating in somewhere around on the fifth line
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
say, I'm going to jump in and use your opponent's reactions to that to help you build a wall, for instance, along the O or P lines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Zogi Zogi says AlphaGo move shoulder hit the fourth line. Monsieur Cheese says learning is fun. Right. Well,
Although
I
shoulder
think
hits on the fifth line,
or
not the fourth line.
shoulder hit the fourth line on the fifth line. Yeah.
On the
Okay.
fifth line, exactly, yes. So yeah. So he's probably talking about P11. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or like a
That's what I
more
was
human
thinking.
style move would be P12, something like
Mm-hmm. And I think overall I'm fairly happy with
Game paused.
how the flow of the stream is going.
Right.
Just because I think what we're talking about are things that the audience is finding interesting.
Right. Yeah, like in previous games that I've seen you two play, when we look at this, the stuff you were saying is making a lot of sense and it seems to be more organized than some of the other games I've seen you play. So I think it was the game itself was a good job.
Hmm.
Shall we move on to a I could do a review of the game.
Yeah, let's do that.
Shall we? Okay, let's go ahead and do review.
So I can do that, and I guess I'll have to give. Oh, you'll get the link, won't you?
Think so.
I think you only get a actually. Well, maybe you only get it if you finish the game though.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well,
So I can give
Okay.
you a link here.
All right. So I will pass or resign, which is better.
Remove
Whichever.
the
we'll
death
just
stones.
Mm-hmm.
pass and say no one gets any points.
Mm-hmm.
So really, oh, okay.
How
Uh,
should I resign? Because I don't know how
we
to.
we can just accept remove stones, and the game is
You have
Okay.
won.
apparently it's giving some points, but
Mm-hmm.
we don't care so much about that.
Okay.
All right,
You can just come to the review room. Did you see
here's
the
the
link?
Mm-hmm.
review.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it showed up once we did that.
So let's see. So does everyone see the board that I'm playing with? I put on 7 stones on it.
Yes.
Very good. Okay, so this is pretty normal opening. Um, White did have a choice here. I would be more inclined probably to play something to continue from
Right,
17
and
because
and
like
I considered something like that, and as well as a bit earlier, I decided that I thought this sort of thing was pretty might be a bit complicated.
yes, right. Like it would be a this would be a joseki where you both players would want to know what they're doing. So like it could get pretty messy. Yeah. So instead you played here. That's not necessarily bad. Okay. Yeah. And you're reasoning that like you would usually play here, but instead um you thought maybe you could get a large scale moyo on the top. And so the reasoning for this move, it made sense. I think that's a pretty valid reasoning. So here, yeah. So this is following the proverb to leave space for a two-space extension. So it's a pretty safe way to invade the lower side, the left side, that is. So otherwise, so like when you invade an opponent area like this, um, for starters, it's a pretty good idea to have 2 points that you can play. So in this case, black is looking, if white plays from this side, black has room for this two-space extension. And you're getting some kind of a base there. Or if white plays from this side, maybe you're looking at this extension here. So in that way, it's following a proverb. Not necessarily the way computers do it, but there's some logic to that. So it's working in its own way. And um, I think the way I would probably approach the side, instead of making Miai of 2 extensions like this, maybe I would be making Miai of the corner and the side. So like, for instance, something like this
Hmm.
and something like this. In this case, I would be getting a bit more space on the side compared to the previous example where it was like, it would be like this and white would be putting pressure on this group. Like this group is, it's going to have to run out into the center. And so I would be playing a bit lower down. It's pretty unusual. It's pretty common actually that when your opponent controls the side, like white has all these stones that were controlling the left side of the board. So there's some extra white stones there. White's always going to have a local advantage on the left side of the board. When you're entering your opponent's side like this, from black's point of view, it's pretty common to be playing down on the second line because um, you if you have your stones on the second and third lines, it's relatively easy to create a little territory there, which is going to be your base. So like if you play on the fourth line, it's completely different strategy. Like you're more likely to be running out towards the center from the start. If you're going to try to make a base, a move like this on the third line is reasonable, and my choice would probably be to sort of try to make Miai at the corner and the side. Okay, so that's just I was just throwing that out there. So like yeah, so still like this kind of move would have been the normal way for white to attack it. So like something like this. and black would still be weak locally. So um, white would be sort of waiting for some kind of reaction like this, and then white could surround the top side. So that would be how I would follow. White plays here. This is not necessarily bad. Like I said, you see a lot of moves like this in the new Fuseki, the Shin Fuseki era. Uh, and by the way, the Shin Fuseki era that I'm talking about is when Goseigen and Kitani Minoru they started playing moves that were not 3-4 points. So they played a lot of star points. Goseigen especially liked the star points. So he was one of the greatest players of the 20th century. He started playing star points. Kitani played a lot of moves on the fifth line, and they were just experimenting with the opening, just ignoring a lot of the established rules of thumb that people had. And part of it was these shoulder hits that they were playing. It's probably better for white to continue like this,
Right.
which would close black out of the corner. So instead of your extension at d14, this seems to do a better job of keeping the corner for white.
Mm-hmm.
This left room for black to slide in at b16. Okay. Yes. So I probably got you into trouble there, Timian, because I would dive into the 3-3 point. But you really have to know what's going on here in order to make good use of this stone. So first of all, white does have a number of choices here. So this is the easy one, where black gets to connect underneath, and white's gonna live in the corner. But in this variation, it's pretty clear that black is gonna be happy. You're gonna be happy that you tried this out, because obviously you have reduced the corner territory and you have strengthened black's position on the bottom side. So it's clear that black has accomplished something here. So this is what white does basically if there's no better alternative. So that's the safe
I
move.
did forget about that one.
Yeah, you see it in a lot of handicap games, like in a game in a position where you're winning anyway. This is the safest way to handle that, so you don't get into a fight if you do that. Now this move is really, it is, you mentioned this move, and it is the exception. So in most cases, it's not good. You probably just want to forget this move.
Mm-hmm.
It's really is the exception when it works.
Mm.
So your move was this one. This move, when compared to a move like this,
Oh, hold on. I'm not seeing it.
are you synced with my? There should be a button that
Should
makes you
be.
sync with me.
Wait.
Uh,
Right now, I have a Blackstone invading the 3-3 point, so I'm at move number 25.
oh, okay. I think now it is.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about 26 now, the Hane on the second line. So do you see me putting a Sagari down at E2? I just played for white at E2.
I don't see it. Oh, I
Okay.
see it on the stream.
You
Uh,
see it in Discord, but you don't see it on
or I
OGS?
see it on Twitch. I'm not seeing it on
Right, on
OGS.
Twitch. Okay. Um, I think the problem is that your screen on OGS is not synced with my commentary,
Yeah.
my review. So there's somewhere to the right of the Go board, there's a little button that will synchronize your your screen with mine.
Right. I click sync, but it seems to not be working. I'm gonna try refreshing.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
anyways,
probably
continue.
okay. So the difference of playing your move at F2 and going down, the potential advantage of playing the Hane at F2 usually
Hmm.
involves the ladder. So the ladder I'm talking
Hmm.
about is when black plays here and say white plays here. So black's going to be able to live in the corner here. And it all depends, like if the ladder here is good for white, that's going to provide a lot of annoyance for black. It means that, so for instance, if black tries to save this stone, then you would have a lot of forcing moves here. You would be able to play moves like um, this, and like eventually you would be able to kill the black stones on the side, probably. So if the ladder does not favor black
On the left side or the bottom side?
on the bottom side. So if the ladder does not favor black, so in a position like this, if this ladder does not favor black, this is going to be a major problem for black when you do stuff like this.
Okay.
However, in this board position, the ladder does favor black. So if something like this happens, and you can't cut here because the ladder is going to favor black.
That makes sense.
So yeah, so the validity of this hane, it almost always depends on the ladder. So if it doesn't work, then you probably don't want this exchange. Oh, yeah, this exchange of these two. So like if you're going to play here anyway, then it's just an exchange of the two marked stones here. So
Right.
F2 for, and usually that's bad. Usually you want to have that area wide open. So it would be like when you play here, the whole side is open. So later on, you can be thinking of, yeah, so something like this. At this point, there's a lot more room for you to do stuff like H3 next. Okay, so up to this point, like it's a pretty high level game. But actually, this move, I'm sorry, Timmy, this just was not working. Because when you play a move like this, you're bumping against the white stones, and so once you've played that, you can't afford to die in the corner because you've just played inside what would become white's territory, and you forced white to play a stone on the outside. So there's no way you can afford to sacrifice the corner now. And also, the other problem with this move is it's weakened these two stones on the outside because you've just filled one of your own liberties. So you want to try to do something without that exchange. And so what I was talking about a little bit as you were playing the game, this kind of move, the attitude here would be maybe black's going to sacrifice the corner. And so you would continue with stuff like that. And then like if you couldn't find a good way to live in the corner, you would start playing stuff on the outside. And you would have ideas of eventually forcing white to put a lot of stones in order to capture these black stones. So like it would end up being a race to capture. White would probably win the race to capture, but the territory would be very small, and black would be getting forcing moves from the outside to strengthen black's position. So that's how it could work sometimes. And so if you're thinking of the possibility of sacrificing this group in the corner, it comes in connection with strengthening your outside stone. So in that case, it would be sort of mandatory to be playing a move like one in order to have a proper position on the outside. Another idea would be to play something like this. So like if you're trying to live inside a constricted space like this, you generally want to go to the second line, not the third line. So you're playing a lot of stones on the third line. And you were asking, for instance, later on about C14. I think when you're sort of surrounded, when there's a huge amount of your opponent's stones in the vicinity, quite often you do want to be going to the second line. So that's something you have to remember. Like people say, you should not play on the second line in the opening. But that's not true when your opponent has a strong position. So this is another case, like if you play the third line here, it would be relatively difficult for you to make living space. But if you play on the second line, then you already have a cut here. So like if white wants to avoid that, then white plays here. And you might note that all three of those black stones were on the second line. Those are taking vital points to make two eyes. So in this case, black has a 2i shape here in the corner. So there's an I at A1, an I on out, and then an I on the side. So this would be an example of how black could live. Okay, so yeah, so this is where black got into a bit of trouble. Let's get back to the game position. Yeah, you tried to cut, but you couldn't. Yeah, so you did manage to live though. Okay. All right, yeah. Yeah, and yeah. So this was all of this was really good. White's local moves should probably be here.
Yeah. I figured C15 wasn't great, but it was something I wanted to try.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't really work. Okay. Yeah. So yes. So this is, let's see, and then yeah, and so we're at this point. So this is the kind of move that I would be thinking of playing. And like you're saying, I'm gonna jump in here. So like the other suggestion I was making is like if you're gonna invade on the third line, if you do this, you can probably live inside. So like if we could imagine a sequence something like this, where you're getting some room to make a life. But of course, your center is going to be gone after this. And you might even have to worry about the top side. So like it doesn't really work well with your ideas for surrounding the center. You do get to take away the right side. It does make for a more complicated fighting game. But yeah, it's really much more difficult in execution. So this kind of move, you're saying you're going to jump in here, and you sort of want, of course, if you can jump in, it's a lot easier than the previous one because you're all connected out. So yeah, if black plays here, then you would think of continuing something like this. And you can see how this exchange of stones, if you're not going to jump into the right side after all, making this kind of exchange, it really speeded up your surrounding center. So it's an example of how you go about surrounding a territory like this, which was, I think it was your question.
Sort of leaning on black a bit.
Yeah, it does make a huge difference in the efficiency of your attempts to surround the territory. Yeah, so I'm sort of caught up here. Someone was mentioning a shoulder hit. The AlphaGo shoulder hit would be this one. And so, like this is a move that's conceivable. So like you could play here, you would still be looking at it would be annoying if white played at R13, so black would still sort of be thinking of some way to respond here. So maybe you can even keep on playing towards the center. But so yes, it would be an AlphaGo type of move. But I see nothing wrong with the human move here. This is a more like it like we never played shoulder hits on the fifth line or against the fourth line stone. So we never did that before AlphaGo showed it to us. And it does sort of come hard. So like it's not as if I can say which is better, but it's a lot. It seems a lot more natural to play a move like this.
Slap8 is asking, and how should black continue from the last move? Which move were you referring to?
I was giving this example. And if I were playing with black, I'd be a bit worried about this momentum that white has gotten. And I would be thinking of a way to to fiddle with this a little bit and get to find a way not to be forced to play so many moves on the right. So, for example, if I played here, this would be also a different way of surrounding the right side. And the value of this would be that after white plays this way, I don't necessarily have to connect here. So maybe I could push once, and then I could decide whether I wanted to continue here, which would be both sides surrounding territory, or I would also have the option of diving in. So, for instance, a kind of thing like this. And the fact that I have a stone at 1 instead of this point, it makes a better connection to the stones at 3 and 5. It makes it more difficult for white to look at the cut on the fourth line here. Right.
Okay, it looks like that probably answered the question.
I think he was asking more like he said, I mean, what's the response from black to P12? So I think if white goes to
Yeah.
P12, maybe that's what they meant.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a point in the game where strong players are already thinking about like how the game is going to continue here. So it's like if you play in a variation like this, where both sides are going to be surrounding territory. So like if you imagine a variation like this, um, if you're playing at a high level, you have to actually calculate you have to count the territory, and really strong players will already know who's going to win this game. Like it's a final stage of the middle game where everything is going to be decided. And so um, you have to sort of pause in a position where like this, where if you don't think that's good for black, if you're worried about that, then you would be going in this direction, and you would you would play something like this, and after you get cut off in the corner, you can always play here to make a living shape. So in this case, black would be taking a lot of the center away from white, uh, at the price of losing a piece of the right side. So it all depends on it's late middle game, and there's a lot of end game. It's very close to end game in the fact that you actually have to calculate and count the score basically, and figure out who's winning in a given variation. So like a variation like this would be more difficult to calculate, and therefore it wouldn't be so important because your opponent can't calculate it either. It's like there's more undefined areas. But that other variation I was showing you, um, everything is getting defined here. So like you have a white territory in the center of the board, and it's fixed. And also you have a black territory in the lower right. Lower right, yeah. So um, so a strong player can actually calculate who's going to win this game to a certain in some cases. So it's a choice. Like you have to. It depends on your positional judgment. If you think that this is going to be bad for black, you might be thinking of variations like this. So black has to make a choice of surrounding and allowing to surround, or invading, and you have to expect that black's going to lose a large portion of the lower right area in this variation. So like for at the very least something like a variation like this, you can see that the that area is going to disappear. So like so this whole area in the lower right, there's going to be a lot of stones of both colors there, and I would assume that white's going to survive. So it's going to disappear. So black's losing that side territory, but so you have to decide if you want to play this variation, which would be a big fight, and black would reduce the center, or if black thinks black is winning, then you can allow white to surround the center. So this would be a variation that black would go into if black thinks the numbers are good for black. So it depends on that. Like it's um, as far as shapes are concerned, they're both valid choices. Okay, I guess that's about it for
Yeah,
my.
that's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank
You know,
you
I
very
think
much.
you both do better when you're explaining your moves as you play.
I think it was you. I think it was not us.
I was hoping, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
you're helping, but I do like trying to explain my moves.
Yeah, it does make a difference.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you
All
so
right.
Yeah.
much
So
for
thank you.
stopping by,
Bye.
All
and
right.
farewell.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Next time.
Mhm. Bye. Okay, so I think I will finish the stream with this,
Finish the stream.
so I can have like a nice episode with Michael Redmond. And
Mhm.
yeah, thank you, Departure,
Thank
for the
everyone
game.
for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for everybody.
I depart.
And see you next time. Tomorrow I have the Christmas tree decoration stream, so stay tuned. Let's decorate the tree. All right, thank you. Bye.